on this Thursday night.
What can you do for the tens of thousands of people laid off in that sector now? Is there anything you can do?
We are absolutely looking at the tools we have around EI.
The Prime Minister on helping the oil industry and divisive politics.
Canadians deserve better than politicians who play the fear and division card every time they can.
Do you practice what you preach?
I certainly try to, yeah.
You try to?
Yeah,
would you admit that there are times when you don't?
I sit down with Justin Trudeau ahead of a tense meeting with the premiers, and we'll set up the stakes with that issue.
A controversial high-tech company, a Chinese executive arrested on Canadian soil at the request of the Americans. What's the cost to Canada of being caught between two global powers?
To live in French, to get up in the morning, to buy your coffee in French, to do all these things in French is political in itself.
Young francophones in Ontario take on their premier.
We need to tell Doug Ford that, he can't do that.
The ways they are fighting to protect their language. This is The National.
We are here in Place Jacques-Cartier in beautiful Montreal, where the Prime Minister and Canada's premiers have gathered for tomorrow's First Ministers' meeting, already shaping up to be one of the most bitter and contentious meetings that we have seen in some years now. Some provinces think Justin Trudeau is simply out of touch with their problems, not least Alberta, which is pleading for Ottawa's help with the oil crisis. Earlier today, I sat down with the Prime Minister for a wide-ranging interview. He revealed that he is willing to do more.
On Sunday, the Alberta Premier announced a reduction on oil production to deal with these historic low prices in Alberta. She's also buying rail cars to try and find more ways out. The Premier is concerned about the short term, and that's why she's doing these things right now. What have you offered to her? What can you do for the tens of thousands of people laid off in that sector now? Is there anything you can do?
We are absolutely looking at the tools we have around EI. We're looking at the tools we have around income support. We've done a number of things around situations in the past, and we're going to continue to do that. And I'm also willing, of course, to sit down with Premier Notley and hear about how the federal government can be a partner in solving this.
But she's told you she wanted you to buy rail cars, for instance.
That's something we're happy to look at. If that's a proposal that she thinks is going to make a significant difference, then we're happy to look at how it works. I mean, we're there to be a partner to help.
Now, the election, as you know, is now less than a year away. So the Prime Minister's words, his actions are scrutinized now more than ever. So we also talked today about one of those choices and what it might have cost him.
You've said that Canadians should expect the next election to be the nastiest yet. Okay. What are you going to do to prevent that? I'm
going to continue to demonstrate that positive politics that bring people together, that not engaging in personal attacks, that not trying to dumb down and simplify politics so it fits on a bumper sticker or an easy slogan. Instead, treat Canadians as intelligent, rational citizens who want to be part of the difficult reflections how we move forward. Canadians deserve better than politicians who play the fear and division card every time they can.
Do you practice what you preach?
I certainly try to, yeah.
You try to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you admit that there are times when you don't?
I will admit that I have occasion to be critical in ways. I always look for ways to be very fierce about distinctions in policy and calling out the politics of division and fear whenever I see it.
I'm thinking back to a moment at the beginning of October when we were talking about the Terry Lynn McClintock issue with the Healing Lodge.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
And inside the House of Commons, you called the Conservatives
a party of ambulance-chasing politicians who are, quite frankly, demonstrating a contempt for the principles of law.
And it wasn't just in the heat of the moment, because then you came right back out and you said it again.
The Conservatives are terribly upset that I referred to them as practicing ambulance-chasing politics. But if they're upset, It's probably because it stings a bit.
How do you feel about that comment now? Does it reflect who you are as a politician?
I think it does, because I won't make any apologies for calling out people who use the basest kinds of politics and fears to torque a situation. I mean, they were willing to exploit a horrific tragedy to a family, to a little girl, to try and score cheap political
Or they were trying to
points.
call attention to an issue that needed to be changed that you subsequently changed.
That they consistently ignored. And I will not apologize for calling out the politics of cynicism, of fear, of division, of anger, of hatred.
Yeah, but that's not what you did. That's not what you did. You called them a name back. Ambulance chasing politicians. I wonder whether you think you should have said something different now.
I think it's extremely important to point out when people are playing the basest kinds of politics. Their decision to move forward and to make this an issue on the back of a terrible tragedy was something that
But you changed the policy. It worked. And in that way, the opposition was doing its job. Whether you like the language they used is beside the point.
I think there's two things. First of all, yes, it is an opposition's job and responsibility to challenge, to call out, to say you should do things differently, you can do things differently. That's really important. But if they do it by exacerbating the polarization, the anger, the fear within an electorate, we start to walk down a very, very dangerous path. And I am always going to be very firm and unequivocal about calling out nastiness and negativity to that level in politics.
As you can imagine, we covered a lot more ground with Prime Minister Trudeau. He was often very passionate, and it was a good conversation. You can see that whole conversation this Sunday on The National. Of course, the premiers will get their official FaceTime with the Prime Minister tomorrow, but if today was any indication, Trudeau seems to be in for a bit of a rough ride. Don't forget, Trudeau is not dealing with the same sea of friendly faces that he was even just last year. Katie Simpson now on the friction and what it could mean.
Good evening, Premier. This may be the only time all of the premiers sit down with the Prime Minister together. A pre-meeting dinner ahead of tomorrow's main event.
I look forward to the meeting tomorrow.
An event Ontario's Premier is threatening to disrupt.
We want to make sure the agenda is exactly what we want to talk about. We don't need to be lectured by his ministers.
Doug Ford may walk out of the meeting because he doesn't like the Prime Minister's agenda, focusing mostly on interprovincial trade. Instead, he wants to talk about oil, pipelines, the carbon tax, and Bill C-69, a proposed law to change how energy projects are evaluated, which some provinces see as a threat. Some premiers don't agree with Ontario's approach.
That's their loss. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to talking to my colleagues.
Walking out is never the thing to do.
But others do want to see the agenda changed.
We don't need to waste time for people to take sort of self-congratulatory victory laps around on things that have already happened. And that means that we cut the fluff and we change the agenda.
The Prime Minister says he's open to discussing whatever the premiers want and seemed indifferent about the threats.
I'm looking forward to a productive discussion. I don't have any illusions that we're all going to agree on everything, but I certainly know that Canadians expect us to be able to roll up our sleeves and talk constructively about how we're going to solve the challenges they're facing.
Talks will be more political posturing than productive, given the tensions around the table. And no relationship is more difficult than that of the new face of the Conservative movement and the Liberal Prime Minister. With the federal election less than a year away, the battle lines are drawn.
Now, Katie is outside the restaurant where the leaders are sitting down for their unofficial dinner of sorts. We can only assume they didn't throw food at each other, but maybe they'll get to that point tomorrow. Katie, I understand you've learned more about that private meeting between Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau. What can you tell us?
Well, there was some pushback, I'm told, by federal sources over Bill C-69. The Premier told the Prime Minister he doesn't like it. And when Justin Trudeau asked for suggested changes or some sort of specific concerns, I'm told Doug Ford accused Trudeau of badgering him like a reporter. Ford also suggested that Canada drop its retaliatory steel and aluminum tariffs on the U.S. in the hopes that the Americans would do the same. It's an idea that was outright rejected tonight by Canada's U.S. ambassador when I asked him about it here outside the dinner. Provincial sources didn't confirm or deny any of the exchanges, saying only the Premier is ready for a meaningful discussion about important national issues. Rosie.
Okay, Katie Simpson outside the restaurant where they're apparently eating kebabs of some kind. Thanks for that, Katie. Appreciate it. We will have more from Montreal tonight, and at issue will, of course, weigh in on the Prime Minister's seemingly fraught relationship with some of the premiers anyway. But let's turn to Canada's role in a high-profile arrest that has only, it seems, worsened the U.S.-China dispute. And Adrian, turns out that China doesn't like it when that happens.
Yeah, well, there's an understatement. There is a lot of anger in China, Rosie, over this arrest of a member of really the business elite and a senior officer of one of China's most powerful companies. So ostensibly, this is about accusations Meng Wanzhou and tech giant Huawei violated sanctions against Iran. Canada detained her between flights in Vancouver after a U.S. extradition request. So the arrest could send a chill through these tense trade negotiations between China and the United States. And as David Cochrane explains, Beijing isn't likely to forget Canada's role anytime soon.
The appropriate authorities took the decisions in this case without any political involvement or interference.
The Prime Minister insists politics played no role in the arrest of Meng Wanzhou, but it's certain to be political now.
Canada is now in the middle of two economic giants and their proxy war.
Those giants, the U.S. and China, are locked in an escalating trade and tariff war, where each provocation jolts the global economy. Markets plunged today after news of this arrest, which comes after years of U.S. hostility to Huawei. The American government labels Huawei a national security threat, one that could use its technology to spy for the Chinese government. The U.S. and several other countries have banned it from their 5G networks. Canada has not, though this analyst warns this arrest could make Canada a target anyway.
The biggest risk to Canada right now is some form of retaliation, either against Canadian businesses or Canadians in China.
It's happened before. In 2014, after Canada arrested and extradited a Chinese hacker to the U.S., Kevin and Julia Garrett were arrested by China on accusations of espionage. Kevin Garrett spent 2 years in Chinese detention before he was released.
Every day we get more reasons to ban Huawei from our 5G network.
That history has the Conservatives pushing the government to say no way to Huawei, which the Liberals still aren't ready to do.
We will rely on our experts, our national security experts, in making a final decision.
There are the national security interests, but also the economic ones. China is the world's second largest market. Trudeau is eager to boost trade ties, also eager not to be tied too closely to this arrest.
There was no engagement or involvement in the political level in this decision because we respect the independence of our judicial processes.
That is how it works in Canada. The question is, will China buy it? David Cochrane, CBC News, Ottawa.
Why is this so sensitive? Well, Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei CFO arrested in Vancouver, is the daughter of the company's founder. He's ex-Chinese military and reportedly close to the Beijing government. Chinese law explicitly compels companies to support its intelligence services. So if you take all that together, it adds to the long-standing concerns of Western spies that Huawei is not your average smartphone company. Here's the brief. Huawei is a rising giant, recently surpassing Apple as the world's second-largest smartphone manufacturer. Much of that business is outside North America, but it's also the world's largest seller of wireless infrastructure. And U.S. intelligence agencies and lawmakers are deeply suspicious of the company and another Chinese telecom, ZTE.
They are used for espionage. They are part of the supply chain, whether it's routers or anything else. They embed stuff in there that could be used to spy against us.
The U.S., Australia, and New Zealand have banned Huawei from building their next-generation 5G wireless networks. The biggest UK telecom is moving away from the company, but in Canada, TELUS and Bell are working with Huawei on 5G, which promises to be 10 times faster than the best speeds you can get at home to make remote surgeries possible and driverless cars safer. Huawei insists it doesn't pose a risk, and truth is, if intelligence agencies have evidence of hacking or spying using Huawei's tech, they're keeping it quiet. So as we've mentioned, this arrest comes at a pretty delicate time when negotiators are trying to find a way out of the brewing U.S.-China trade war now roiling international markets. Here's Sasha Petrusek with The View from Beijing.
The news about this arrest is just now filtering out in China, but it seems pretty clear it's touching a nerve, especially since it plays into the government's narrative that the West, and the United States in particular, only wants to keep China down. An early editorial in the tabloid Global Times accuses Washington of resorting to despicable rogue approaches to try to keep Huawei out of the world telecom market. Now, this tabloid doesn't always reflect the government's thinking, but Huawei is a respected firm. It is the biggest private company in this country, and Meng Wanzhou, the woman who was arrested, is part of China's business royalty. Her father established Huawei. The message from the government today seemed more subdued, and there's good reason why Beijing may not want this arrest to derail trade talks with the United States. These talks just restarted after the meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and U.S. President Donald Trump in Buenos Aires. Just today, the Chinese government announced that it is implementing immediately some of the agreements that came out of that meeting. It also predicted a smooth transition through all the other issues that are still outstanding within the 90-day period. Now, since this announcement came in the shadow of the arrest, it seems pretty clear that Beijing doesn't want that incident to affect the broader relationship. At least that's its line for now. Things could still change. Sasha Petrusek, CBC News, Beijing.
Now, an official with Canada's cyber spy agency, CSEC, was asked today whether he's worried about Chinese retaliation over the Huawei arrest. His response: Canada has to be ready for anything at all times.
We always have to be resilient no matter what the possible trigger could be. So we increase our resilience against any form of malicious cyber activity that we could be facing as a nation.
That was Scott Jones, the first head of the new Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. Today, it also released its first report on cyber threats to this country. And one of those threats is foreign interference in next year's federal election. As Salima Shivji tells us, that could look very similar to what we've already seen in the U.S.
What the trolls want them to be angry about, that's what the game is all about.
John Zabiak knows how state-funded trolls work. The professor has studied millions of tweets sent out by a Russian agency in the last U.S. election, how they play to emotions to capture minds.
People are people. They are going to believe what hits them emotionally. If it can have an impact on them, they will believe it.
In that pile of fake tweets, thousands targeting a Canadian audience, misinformation about Fort McMurray's forest fire, asylum seekers crossing into Canada, and the deadly shooting at a Quebec City mosque. Those tweets now pulled down from trolls pretending to be on the left, others on the right, designed to fuel and amplify a divide. Today's report from Canada's new centre monitoring cyber threats says, expect to see more of these as we head into an election year. Sophisticated state-sponsored influence, hard to detect and easy to generate. Security officials aren't singling out any one country, but they're bracing themselves.
We're preparing as the government for that very eventuality to make sure that we're ready to go.
Not a lot of details as to what that effort looks like, but plenty of warnings about what every single Canadian can do.
It's not to be scared of these online tools. I'm not saying delete your accounts and move back to sending postcards. I'm saying just consume it with a critical eye and look for more trusted sources.
The onus, it would seem, is more on individuals, but there's an urgent call from MPs studying the problem, traveling as far afield as the UK for answers.
Without question, there needs to be regulation. The days of self-regulation are over, and Facebook certainly acknowledged that when they were before us at that committee.
A report from his House of Commons committee is coming next week, and the last federal budget did set aside millions to protect elections from interference.
Let's see.
In the meantime, some advice to avoid the rabbit hole of misinformation.
Don't click on things unless you know what you're clicking on.
It could come with consequences. Salima Shivji, CBC News,
Ottawa.
And here are some of the other stories we're following tonight on The National. There's difficult news affecting hundreds of people and their families in Nova Scotia. A major call center in Sydney has shut its doors.
They called us all together and told us that we no longer have work.
That puts more than 600 people out of a job. Servicom's parent company in the U.S. went bankrupt in October, and there was a deal in the works to sell the Sydney operation, but the sale fell through this morning. And in Vancouver tonight, a family of 5 is recovering from carbon monoxide poisoning. It started this morning at their home in Barrier. That's a small community in central BC. According to a doctor, they were showing classic signs of carbon monoxide exposure. So dizziness, headaches, vomiting. He even says 2 of them blacked out. Now, first responders got there quickly, and the family was airlifted to a hospital in Vancouver. And here's the thing, that follows a string of incidents across BC over the last few days. A doctor at the Vancouver General Hospital, where they have the only hyperbaric chamber in the province, he called this an insane week. And tonight, he is our witness.
This is now 22 patients in the last 5 days that I have been contacted about. We've only had to treat 8, and fortunately the other ones were not as badly affected. But as we mentioned, we've got 1 person who's going to die upstairs, and it is very possible other people are going to get very sick or die in the next month or so. Most people don't think it's going to happen to them. Most people think this is okay. It's okay to run the pressure washer. It's okay to let the car idle in the garage. It's okay to have this fire going and I'll fix the chimney tomorrow. And most of the time, it's okay. And some of the time, it's really not okay. So my message is, it's never okay. Here's my message for everybody for holiday gift giving. There's nothing sexier than a carbon monoxide detector. In fact, there's nothing better than 2.
Still ahead on The National, health, learning, and healing. The federal government promises resolution and reconciliation in a settlement for Indigenous students of day schools. We'll introduce you to one former student who says he never thought the day would come.
Also, the fight for French. Jayla Bernstein meets Franco-Ontarian students who want to go to the now cancelled French language university.
Plus, an interview with the Prime Minister, a deeply tense First Minister's meeting. It's a great night for these guys. Chantal, Andrew, and Chris Hall join me next.
I don't have any illusions that we're all going to agree on everything.
There is serious concern with respect to the agenda that was put out, but I would say at this point that really doesn't matter.
We don't need to be lectured by his ministers. We need to talk about things that matter.
Our view is very simple. We don't need to waste time for people to take sort of self-congratulatory victory laps around on things that have already happened.
So as we've been telling you, it is gearing up to be a tense First Minister's meeting here in Montreal. Some premiers frustrated with the agenda and what they say is missing from it. A lot has changed since the last time they all met. For some of them, it's their first time here. What is the strategy here? What can the Prime Minister do? What should he do? Chantal Hébert is in Montreal. Andrew Coyne is in Toronto tonight, and Chris Hall is with us this week, and he is also in Montreal tonight, where he will broadcast his show from here for the weekend. Okay, let me start with you, Chantal. What should we make of all this political posturing leading up to this meeting? You've covered a lot of these, all 3 of you have. Is this sort of par for the course, or is there something different here?
Well, it's par for the course on a number of fronts. The first is a Prime Minister at the end of his cycle looking at an election, brings a weak hand to any First Minister's meeting. Second, in a vacuum, anything will fill the space, and this is a conference that is actually not about much of anything, except we're meeting, and the Prime Minister has lost a lot of the friends he used to have around the table. The new premiers who have fresh mandates are coming here with their chance to grab the soapbox, and absent a central theme, they're doing just that.
Well, when I talked to the Prime Minister earlier today, Andrew, he said, you know, well, at least I'm having the meetings. At least I'm here and I'm listening to them, which is what he often says because Stephen Harper didn't have them. But at this point, I mean, is that the right thing to do, to at least meet like this or not?
Not necessarily. You know, we've got along for many decades in this country with almost no First Ministers meetings at all. It's a relatively recent thing. It's basically theater, and it's cheap theater at that. There was an ostensible purpose for this meeting, which was they were going to discuss interprovincial trade barriers, which premiers could agree to get rid of tomorrow. And if they did, that would make a pretty productive meeting. But they don't want to get rid of those meetings. They don't, those barriers. They don't want to talk about it. So instead, we're going to talk about a lot of things in federal jurisdiction, Bill C-69 or pipelines, things that the feds can deal with perfectly well themselves. And are not going to get solved at this meeting tomorrow. So it'll be a great bun fight. The premiers will get to say a lot of harsh things about the Prime Minister. We'll, in the media, all pretend that these are actually genuine human emotions that are being expressed, but it's all performative.
Okay, Chris, do you agree that there's nothing of substance that will come of this, that this is all political posturing and nothing more?
Well, you know, I'd note that we're told the Prime Minister offered all the premiers a selection from the restaurant that they're dining at tonight, but he didn't have the same a la carte approach to the issues they want to discuss. So I would say that Andrew and Chantal are both right. This meeting, it's a nice time to meet prior to Christmas in a beautiful city like Montreal. But when you look at the real issues they have before them, what to do about oil prices and how do you get pipelines built, how do you work more cooperatively to get rid of these interprovincial trade barriers, which they've been talking about for as long as I've been a reporter. Those things could be solved if there was some will, but we haven't really seen it from either side. So back to the point about the timing. We have elections coming up in Alberta and Ottawa next year, federally next year. This is an opportunity for the two combatants there, Rachel Notley in particular, but Justin Trudeau, to show that he's not like his father just accused Joe Clark of being a head waiter to the provinces, but setting out what he thinks are the important topics that deal with the issues that he most cares about, Canada-U.S. relations and the opportunity to diversify our trade base away from the United States.
And no one
well, you know,
was,
yeah, go ahead, Chantal.
No one who was a Conservative premier and who was getting his or her picture taken, his in this case, on the front of Maclean's, calling himself part of a group called The Resistance, is going to come to Montreal to give the Prime Minister a win. So theater, yes, but a lot of the things that you will hear in the next year's federal campaign and over the next 6-7 months, and it's going to be politics until a Prime Minister has a French mandate. And I didn't say the Prime Minister, I said a Prime Minister.
Okay, so when I talked to him today, and it was a long conversation, but one of the things I asked him about was support for Alberta, because certainly the Premier of Alberta is coming here asking for more, looking for more. I'm not sure exactly how he'll respond, but this is what he told me a little bit earlier today. Take a listen.
We are absolutely looking at the tools we have around EI. We're looking at the tools we have around income support. We've done a number of things around that, around situations in the past, and we're going to continue to do that. And I'm also willing, of course, to sit down with Premier Notley and hear about how the federal government can be a partner in solving this solution.
But she's told you she wanted you to buy rail cars, for instance.
You know, that's something we're happy to look at. If that's a proposal that she thinks is going to make a significant difference, then we're happy to look at how it works.
Andrew, I mean, you can talk about that specific answer, or you can talk about sort of the strategy that he has dealing with people who used to be a close ally. I think Rachel Notley used to be a close ally, and he has lost her for a multitude of reasons. Part is political, of course, but how should he be dealing with these particular interests that premiers seem to have?
Well, first of all, Alberta has an absolute claim to saying this is a major issue for the country, not just for Alberta. The energy sector is 6 times as large as the auto sector, for example. It's our major export industry. And there is real issues about federal jurisdiction here. So this is something the feds can actually do something about if they had the political will. On pipelines, they could revisit the decisions on Northern Gateway and Energy East. On Bill C-69, they could make that, look at the questions there about whether that's deterring the building of major resource projects. There are things they can do to assuage her that don't involve buying a bunch of railway cars, by the way. Jack Mintz, the professor from Calgary, was in the paper the other day saying, you know, the one thing we could do is relax some of the protectionist restrictions on U.S. Rail companies coming in further into Canada. There's lots of things they can do if they're prepared to make this a priority. And I don't think the Prime Minister wants to expend the political capital on that. I understand why he wouldn't, but if you're Rachel Notley, you're right to hold his feet to the fire on this.
But Chris, isn't there a danger if you say to the country, well, I've done this for Alberta, including by a pipeline, and we've talked about that before, but if you say something to Alberta, then do you not have to sort of give in to everybody's demands a little bit? Is that not the danger?
Well, Rachel Notley has already given in a lot herself. She did put a price on carbon, which is not a popular move in Alberta, which she's now rescinded because there is no pipeline to take the oil to market. To Andrew's point, oil and the energy sector is a huge contributor to the gross domestic product of the country. It is a national issue, massive job losses. And what he said to you when you spoke to him today is that he's looking to help people by maybe expanding employment insurance or enriching the program, not about how we actually deal with the issue that's led to people being laid off in the first place. The other thing, more to your point about what you give here, he's getting along, Justin Trudeau, pretty well with John Horgan in neighboring British Columbia, which is adamantly opposed to a pipeline, but just brought in a climate action plan that will help Justin Trudeau and the federal government meet the commitments they made in Paris a few years back. So to your point, yeah, it's difficult to give in too much, but at the same time, Rachel Notley has already sacrificed to try and meet her commitments to get a pipeline and has nothing to show for it in return.
If we're thinking about the next election and strategically where the Prime Minister's allies are and where they've changed, Chantal, how does that shape the way the Liberals have to approach things, given that the landscape is so different from the last time he ran?
Well, the political, like the Premier, the First Minister's landscape is different. Whether that is necessarily bad for Justin Trudeau is another issue. Chris was talking about BC. I think that the Prime Minister has managed to keep his relationship with the BC government on a rather level playing field. When people talk about Jagmeet Singh running in Burnaby, which would be ground zero of the protest against the Trans Mountain expansion, and maybe losing to the Liberals, it kind of tells you something about things not being so bad. I'm not sure it's bad for Trudeau to be running by proxy against Doug Ford in Ontario. And in Quebec, Mr. Legault is clearly not going to be lining up with the resistance of the Conservatives on pipeline or on carbon pricing. So it's a plus and a minus. I think it's policy-wise a big obstacle to progress, but politically not necessarily a bad thing for the federal Liberals.
Well, some of the people in the Prime Minister's office were saying today, whether Doug Ford walks out or not, if he were to walk out, that's not a terrible thing, really, for the Prime Minister. Andrew.
Yes, and Ford has had a rather bad week, to say the least, so no kidding, he wants to make this about something else besides that. I think running against the premiers, running against any particular premier, you can't be sure which way. It can work to your advantage. It's always nice to have a foil in politics. But if you get painted as the bad guy, if you get painted as the person who's being uncooperative, if you get, and this is maybe an issue more for Liberals than Conservatives, because Liberals have traditionally been the party of, quote unquote, the strong federal government in relative degrees. If you can be painted as a sort of an uncaring, unfeeling, remote voice, that can hurt you. So it'll depend upon how these things play out.
If you're inviting the First Ministers here, you want to show the Canadians at large that you can work together on issues that will matter to them, and that would be the economy. It's just that none of the premiers, or at least the major premiers from Alberta, Ontario, British Columbia, Quebec, are talking about the same economic issues. They all have different issues. So if Justin Trudeau wants to take something from this, he has to be able to coalesce them around something to show, look, we are actually engaged with these issues, whether it's the oil sector, whether it's trying to make this place a new, for example, he was doing an artificial intelligence seminar today at a big convention here. These are the kinds of things that will lead to jobs of the future. But so far, I haven't seen anything that suggests that Justin Trudeau is able to rally the premiers, let alone the rest of the country, around these issues.
It's not going to be possible until after the election, because the hand is weak. I've seen those meetings where the Prime Minister shows up with no real agenda. They always turn out into what we're going to be seeing and what we've been seeing today.
But there is an agenda in the form of what it was supposed to originally be about, which is getting rid of these interprovincial trade barriers. I was a little distressed to see Rachel Notley dismissing that as fluff. I grant that oil prices and the crisis in Alberta is huge, but so is the competitiveness challenge in this country, and interprovincial trade barriers are a huge part of that. So if we're going to get serious about the challenge that we're facing from south of the border, the challenge to our economy in the long run, where we've got to have a much more productive economy if we're going to be able to pay for the aging population, this is a huge chunk of it, and that's something that the federal government absolutely should be taking leadership on.
I got to wrap it up. Okay, thanks everybody. Before we go, be sure to subscribe to At Issue, the podcast. for lots of extra content. This week we're going to talk about how far the Conservatives are willing to go when it comes to the immigration file. You can look for it on iTunes, any major podcast app, our website, cbcnews.ca/The National.
All right, still ahead on The National. Coast-to-coast memorials for the women murdered 29 years ago tonight, remembering the 14 victims of the École Polytechnique shooting in our moment.
And young Franco-Ontarians fighting for language rights. They have a message for Premier Doug Ford.
I feel like we need to tell Doug Ford that, he can't do that, and we want our French, university, we want to be serving French.
Tonight on The National, we're following developing news out of Washington. U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to nominate Heather Nauert as the next U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, replacing Nikki Haley. Nauert's been serving as the spokesperson for the U.S. State Department. Before that, she worked in journalism for more than 20 years, much of that time at Fox News.
Just went through my mind, so many things were going through, and I was terrified.
Yeah, terrified, but that's since given way to relief. 2 high schools in Toronto were put on an hours-long lockdown today after reports a student saw someone with a gun. Investigators looked into it, but in the end did not find any weapon of any kind, and everyone was safe and sound. By the afternoon, the lockdown was lifted.
Now, most Canadians have heard about the horrific abuse suffered by Indigenous children in residential schools and the compensation survivors eventually received. But another 200,000 kids endured similar mistreatment in Indigenous day schools. Beginning in the 1920s, 700 federally operated day schools were eventually set up across the country where Indigenous children were culturally and often physically harmed. Today, as Bonnie Allen reports, Ottawa finally announced an agreement in principle to compensate them.
Hello, Mrs. Blake.
Kurt Adams didn't expect this day to ever come. Recognition of the abuse he suffered as a child at an Indian day school.
That's 50 years ago, and I could still remember it like it was yesterday,
He got to watch online as Ottawa promised compensation.
Students who attended these schools were subject to sexual, physical, and psychological abuse and forced to abandon their language and culture.
Unlike at residential schools, day school students got to go home each night. Many say the abuse was the same. Yet they were excluded from a multi-billion-dollar deal with residential school survivors. In 2009, Gary McLean pushed forward a class action lawsuit for compensation.
In my case, I also got sexually abused, and it happened during the day.
Today, he stood on Parliament Hill for the news, a $200 million package for healing, education, language, and culture. Details on individual payouts for survivors and their families won't come until the new year.
If you take forgiveness one step at a time, it gets easier. I had to forgive the person that hurt me as a child. I had to forgive my parents for not standing up for me.
Adams remembers how he was ridiculed and strapped by teachers for speaking his native language, Nakota.
They were there to teach us about the Bible and about God and stuff, and I remember thinking, how can there be a God and let this happen to us? How can there be a God and allow this to happen to me?
Adams is a bit worried, though, about what some survivors will do with the money when they get it.
If you're an alcoholic, if you're a drug abuser, and all of a sudden you get $100,000, well, your first thing you do, you're not going to go and look for a counselor to help you.
He says survivors need help, not just cash. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Carry the Kettle First Nation.
And do stay with us. In a moment, fighting for French language rights. After a round of cuts, including canceling a university project, young Franco-Ontarians are worried about the future of their language.
To live in French, to get up in the morning, to buy your coffee in French, to do all these things in French is political in itself.
The next generation of Franco-Ontarians has a fight on its hands. The Ford government has announced some cuts to French services, including a planned French language university in Toronto. There have been protests across the province. A member of the governing Progressive Conservatives even resigned over the issue. But while the Premier has backed down on some cuts, it's done little to quell the anger. Jayla Bernstein spent a day speaking with Francophone high school students about what's at stake for them.
In the heartland of French-speaking Ontario, 5 hours east of Queen's Park, a local French high school is hosting student improv teams from across the region. It's lighthearted fun, but the event is colored by protest. There's little love for the Premier among students who wear handmade pins representing the Franco-Ontarian flag.
I feel like we need to tell Doug Ford that he can't do that, and we want our French university, we want to be served in French in Ontario, because even though we're a minority, we have a right to be served in French.
For students who live in primarily English-speaking communities, it's fun to be here, surrounded by peers who know what it's like to be a Franco-Ontarian.
Je suis franco-ontarien.
Les personnes te comprennent dans quelle situation tu vis. Fait que c'est vraiment dans la région que j'aime faire de l'impro.
Daphne Besnay is from Cornwall. Her French high school only exists because her grandfather and others fought for it in the 1970s.
Moi, personnellement, quand je vais en quelque part à un restaurant ou un magasin, je demande toujours mes services en français. C'est quelque chose d'important que si on ne le demande pas, on ne l'aura pas.
Nombre de joueurs illimité.
Reffing the matches is a member of Ottawa's own French improv troupe, Improtéine. His group responded to the government's cuts with this video.
Imaginez ce qui va couper plus tard. I think it's sort of human nature. When you feel threatened, you kind of band together and you got to laugh about it. If not, you're going to be crying.
Les programmes universitaires à Toronto en français, c'est comme les jokes dans cette capsule-ci. Il y en a pas beaucoup.
For the nearly 500,000 people in Ontario whose first language is French, and the 40,000 who only speak that language, Olivier Nadon says these days just existing feels like a form of protest.
To live in French, to get up in the morning, to buy your coffee in French, to do all these things in French is political in itself.
With the province's recent decision, these kids won't have an Ontario university to call their own.
C'est sûr qu'une université en français, c'est là que je vais aller parce que encore là, c'est mon identité. Je comprends beaucoup mieux en français qu'en n'importe quoi.
Some say the silver lining in all of this might be that it's taught the next generation to never take their rights for granted.
They understand more what their parents and grandparents fought for in the past. And now it's their turn. And as we say in French, on passe le flambeau.
Jayla Bernstein, CBC News, Plantagenet, Ontario.
The moment is coming up, but first, just days now till the conclusion of our investigation into one of Canada's largest unsolved mass murders, the bombing of Canadian Pacific Flight 21. For months, the National and CBC podcasts have been digging into this case. Monday morning, you'll be able to download the final episodes of Ian and Joanna Wagstaff's podcast, Uncover, Bomb on Board. And then Monday night, the National brings you a documentary on the case. Here's a preview.
OSP, what is your destination?
CB21, Vancouver. Do you read?
A Canadian Pacific airliner has crashed in rugged country in the Caribou district of British Columbia.
Less than an hour after takeoff, an explosion sends CP-21 plummeting to the ground. All 52 people on board killed. Dee Dee Henderson was just 5 years old when her father was killed in the crash.
I, for one, will never forget this, because I lost a dear loved one in it, and so many other families too.
So again, you can see the documentary Monday night. If you're not already hooked on the podcast, there's still time to catch up. Subscribe to Uncover, Bomb on Board on iTunes or any podcasting app. "29 years ago tonight, this country was in horror when a man walked into École Polytechnique in Montreal and killed 14 women because they were women. The Montreal massacre scarred Canada, and that doesn't get forgotten on this day. The wrenching and necessary acts of remembrance across the country, they're our moment. December 6th has come to be known as the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. That's why you see all those shoes on the steps of the Vancouver Art Gallery, 1,000 pairs, each one representing a woman killed. The whole display meant to be arresting.
Each pair of those shoes representing a life of a mother, a daughter, a sister that no longer walks with us makes a huge impact.
Beside the shoes, the names of those women.
Geneviève Bergeron, Hélène Colgan.
And across the country, the names of the 14 lost 29 years ago today, each one read into Montreal's night sky.
Maryse Laganer, Maryse Leclerc.
If you're in Montreal this night, stop, look up, and you'll see them. The 14 beams of light for those lives and all their potential lost what is now a long time ago.
So I can't see the beams because I'm on the other side of the mountain, but the Hôtel de Ville, the city hall behind me, is lit up in pink for Polytechnique, and the flags in this city are at half-mast. 29 years later, this city and this country still honors the memory of those women.
And also remembers those who survived. I mean, as someone who's the same age as those women, who was in university at the time, you know, you think sometimes about a woman like Nathalie Provost, who was shot 4 times, survived. Somehow, at the age of 22 or 23, she had the presence of mind to try to stop Marc Lépine. When he said he was there to separate the men and women and then kill the women because they were feminists, she said, "We're just students studying engineering. You can come and study with us." And that's the moment when he started shooting. But incredible woman to even attempt that.
And Adrian, I think you said it really well, that remembering the past is necessary, right? That it's an integral part of changing the future. And so, you know, to that end, there's a wonderful digital feature that the CBC Montreal team produced some time ago, sort of remembering the women and telling us a little bit more about who they were. There wasn't a really clean URL that we could kind of post on screen for people, but if they want to check it out, which I encourage they should, they can head to my Twitter account @AndrewChangCBC, and they'll find that there. So that's the National for this December 6th. Have a good
night.